Well, good afternoon, Grace Church. It is Friday afternoon, June 24th, and I'm coming to you with a special video to just kind of share a few thoughts about the ruling that has come down today in the Dobbs case from the Supreme Court. And today will probably likely go down and be seen by future generations as a truly landmark day because today's ruling has ended the codified constitutional right of an abortion that was set forth by Roe v. Wade some 50 years ago. It's an unfathomable. Honestly, I think for most of us who probably hear this, you probably feel the same way I did. We weren't sure this was ever going to happen, but here we are, and it has happened. And that's not in any way an indication about what Christians should do and in terms of politics and interests and those kinds of things. But I think it's really just something in which we stand back and we're in awe of, and we thank God for. Because the result of that ruling some 50 years ago led to, so much human carnage. 63 plus million children, preborn children, were sentenced to death in that ruling. Millions upon millions of women and those who supported them or encouraged them or forced them into abortion have faced incredible psychological and challenges through this whole process. I mean, there's so much science out there, so much research about the impact of abortion on our society and on those who participated in it, that we could spend days just talking about it. But here we are. We're past it now, and or at least temporarily. Every year could be a different thing, but right now that ruling has been overturned, and so what are we to do with that? Like, how are we to respond to that? I think we should enthusiastically celebrate the ruling. I don't mean that in a way that is with malice or with rubbing people's noses into the ground, those who would disagree with us. In fact, I think far from it, because we don't look at this as a cultural win. I mean, certainly it is, but it's not primarily a cultural win, but rather we look at this, hopefully as Christians who believe in a God who makes all things good and who providentially rules over all things. That means our seasons of our life, the circumstances of our life. And so therefore we thank God for his providential ruling in this matter. And we thank God for the men and women he has used in the fight to see this overturned ever since its inception, 1973. So yeah, I mean, I think that's at least one primary, very important way we respond to this. Now, I know and I feel the depth of, like, be careful how we celebrate. Not that we need to be we need to apologize for that celebration, but that the fact of how we celebrate does matter in this moment. And there will be many who celebrate this as a cultural victory, and again, like I said, they'll do everything they can to rub their ideological opponents' noses in the ground. And I just think that would be very poor taste and honestly unconscionable way in which Christians should not approach it this way. So why do we celebrate, though? And how do we celebrate? Well, we celebrate primarily because as Christians, we know that God has revealed in the Bible that he makes humanity in his own image. That's primarily the reason why. And we know that as he makes us in his own image, he gives us bodies, physical bodies that he knits us to form from our mother's womb. Thus, life begins in the womb by God's very gracious hands. That's why this matters to us. This is why primarily there will be many people who go out there and they'll try to misrepresent what Christians really want to do here. There'll be many who'll say, "Well, you're just trying to make our country a Christian nation, or you're trying to make us subjective to your own arbitrary religious laws." And that is not the case. We are simply celebrating because we know that God has said life is good, and we should step up and say that life is good, and we should give praise, we should give worship, we should direct people to the reality of our great God who is sovereign over all things, and he has made all things good. And then listen, this extends, of course, primarily even to other things, right? I mean, we get this whole issue with the LGBTQ and however many other descriptors we have now. Like, we say that God makes the body good. He makes the process of the body good. He makes the conception that brings life to bear good, and he makes all of those things good. And he's intimately involved in those matters. And here's what's more. Even in the face of a world that is so struck down by sin and brokenness, right, and pain and despair, he still doesn't make mistakes. That God is sovereign over those things, whether those actions that we made ourselves or actions that were made against us in these different circumstances. These actions sometimes can seemingly make us think that they contradict the goodness of God, or perhaps they cloud the goodness of God or the goodness of his design for human life and human flourishing. But in reality, God is still very much involved, and even in the midst of those very dark places, of saying what is good. And we should celebrate what is good, and we should point to what is good. Listen, I know many friends who may happen upon this video. They may see something right on Facebook or any other social media. They may even hopefully get a chance to talk to me in person, and they will feel differently about this. And let me just say this: the people I have in mind are people that I love dearly, and I hope that we will remain friends, and I hope that they will see that that I dearly love them, that me and my wife dearly love them, and so I'm going to speak for her in this as well, at least briefly in this setting. That if you are there and you're grieving and you're disheartened by this ruling, even as we disagree, I want you to know that me and Amanda, are willing to sit down, listen, talk, discuss, hear your heart in this matter, willing to share why we feel the way we do, and let you understand that that doesn't change the way we feel about anyone that we know. We're not going to do that. We're just not going to do that. And I hope that you'll take us up on that offer, that we're good for a good cup of coffee. We're good for a good lunch. We're good for that. And we want to be able to have conversations if you are willing. We're not afraid of that. We really do relish that opportunity if that opportunity were to arise. And let me also say, as a pastor and one who pastors a local church here in Middle Tennessee, I want you to know, as those who might be looking on the outside in, I want you to know that as a pastor, I am going to do anything in my power I can do to help pregnant mothers in difficult situations. And I want you to say that that's not empty words. I think you would be hard pressed to come into our church and see that those, because we try to do this for everybody who walks in the doors here. And so we're going to do everything, and I'm going to lead in every way possible to care for pregnant mothers who are in difficult situations. They're not empty words. In fact, I'll go so far as to say they're fighting words. And I hope that the only fighting words you actually hear here, they're really fighting words for the real thing, which is to care for those who are in difficult situations, who otherwise would have expected or would have desired an abortion because they think that's their only real option. And here's what I'm telling you as a Christian: it's not the only real option, and it's not even the best option. And I hope by the time this is all over with, when all of the smoke kind of clears and the smog kind of clears from this, that you'll find that there's thousands upon thousands of churches and millions upon millions of Christians who are willing to walk with you in this. And I hope that I'm just one of them. And so that's really, really important to me. Now, let me switch gears here and speak to the church itself, and particularly my local church or the associations our church participates in, or my friends who are Christians. We rightly, as I've already noted, celebrate this decision, that we believe there's a rightness to this decision. But I do think we need to speak to one another about how we go about business going forward. Many of you, oh gosh, so many that I know, have been doing the good work of caring for women in unwanted pregnancies for so long. And I'm grateful for that. You're such a testimony to me, and it makes my heart glad. And you've opened up your homes, you've opened up your pocketbooks, your checkbooks, your bank accounts. You've even offered to have adopted children who otherwise may have faced an abortion otherwise. And please know that, man, that work is amazing, and I celebrate it. But I also know that work is more important than ever, and that Christians have an opportunity here to show people a better way. That this was never about just overturning a law, but this is about showing people a better way. That when women face difficult circumstances, there's a church that is willing to come alongside them and provide the help that they need, and give them great counsel, and give them great community, and give them great love and grace and generosity. So, church, I'm going to say this, man. The stage is set. It is set for us. And so let us not be guilty of the things that will likely come forth here of rubbing our ideological enemies' noses into the ground about what this rule, but rather that we celebrate the rightness of this rule by praising God and honoring God and worshiping God in the way in which we respond to it. Thankfully, I haven't seen a lot of Christians doing this, but I pray that we don't. But I believe our responsibility in our celebration of this is to roll up our sleeves and get to the good work of human flourishing in our communities and let women know that the church is the best option and the best starting point when they face difficult circumstances in their lives. What would it mean? What kind of work, gospel fruit could happen from something like that? Church, we have it right here before us. Again, we are not guaranteed of any results or any outcomes, but we can certainly offer ourselves and offer our lives, offer our hearts. There's no programs I'm seeking to. I mean, our church will evaluate our associations and evaluate those resources we have in front of us, pregnancy centers and things like that. But more than that, I just want to hope that our people will be ready to go when the time comes. Christian families adopting children, walking alongside women and helping them with their financial needs when they're facing difficult things, helping them maybe continue to move towards if they keep the child and they want to parent the child, but maybe perhaps it's going to make it hard for them to go get an education and get a good job or whatever. Man, what would it look like for the church to be involved in that process? Wow. Just amazing, right? So that's my thoughts there. I was at the SBC last week, and we passed a lot of resolutions on caring for women, caring for victims of sexual abuse. And it would really be a poor thing for us to just pass things, right? Just to pass ideas, just to virtue signal on things and not actually back it up with real life, like ethic. Right. So I want to encourage you that it does us no good to pass resolutions, to pass motions, to pass bylaws and all those kind of things in our denomination, or even make those decisions in our churches and then not step up when an opportunity arises for us to care for women who we probably know some women like this. And maybe we don't know who they are right now, but they're there and they're afraid to say something to us. But let's make it impossible for them to be afraid to say that they see our love, they see our grace, and we would show them the goodness of the gospel through all this stuff. Guys, I love you. I love this church. If you are, again, watching this video and you're not part of our church, I hope that you feel burdened to go, well, maybe that's a place I need to link arms. We would love to have you. If you are in a situation and you think, oh man, where do I go? I hope that you hear this video and you go, oh, I'm going to reach out to Pastor Tom and his church, and maybe someone will be there to help you, whatever it may be. So we're here. We got the work to do. Let's get after it. And let's trust and praise God. Let's pray for our nation during these days. I'm sure there's going to be lots of very poor responses to this. I think a lot of us have that kind of fear. We don't know what will happen. We hope that it doesn't. But let's hope that rational minds prevail in this, and that that we're able to move forward without the loss of life or destruction of property and whatnot, which I think many of us fear will happen. So I'm praying for that as well. Okay. Something to come look forward to going down the road. I am going to have a follow-up meeting about the SBC and just kind of share a little bit of thoughts about what's going on there. For those who are interested, I haven't set a date nor time yet for it, but I'll let you know in plenty of time so that you can make provisions to be there. Okay. So hopefully that'll happen here within the next week or so. But otherwise, I love you and I can't wait to worship with you again soon. See you Sunday.